Hello and welcome to part 4 in a series of videos that I'm putting out where I break down all the fights taking place at UFC on ESPN Plus 11 from a betting perspective. Now it's been a few days since I put out part 3 and I thought I would leave it until a bit later in the week before releasing this final part, just in case any fights got cancelled or any new fights were created from those cancellations. That would have enabled me to cover the new matchups. I also thought it would be a good idea to leave this video until late in the week in case the odds dramatically moved in any way, which meant that, new betting opportunities popped up. But before we get into talking about the fights and this fight card as a whole from a betting perspective, just want to go through a little bit of housekeeping. So the first thing that I want to do is give a massive thank you to everyone watching this video. If you are watching this video, I want to look you dead in the eye and say a big thank you. I've only been making these videos for around 3 months now, and we've already hit 1,500 subscribers today, which is absolutely brilliant. The channel's, growing nice and steady. I had a feeling it would take a lot longer to get to 1,500 subs than it has. I know 1,500 subs isn't much, but MMA betting's a really small niche. And I thank each and every one of you for watching my videos, taking the time to subscribe. Every time I get a new subscriber, it puts a smile on my face. So if you have subbed, it really means a lot to me. Thank you very much. And to show you guys how much I really appreciate your support, I've already scheduled in the live stream for this week. In this live stream, I'll be going through the chat box and answering all your questions. And I'll also be trying to find a decent value prop bet for all the fights taking place at UFC Stockholm this week. So if you don't know what a prop bet is basically just a highly specific bet. So for example, Gustafsson to win in round 1 would be considered a prop bet. So I will be going through each one of these fights on Saturday, a few hours before UFC Stockholm takes place, to try and find a decent value prop for each of these fights. And we did very well on the last card on prop bets. If you would have followed my prop bets for the last card, you would have made a huge profit. So definitely worth checking out. So you can already find that on my channel page. If you just go to my channel page, here it should display the time that the live stream is going to start in your locality. And you can also set a reminder there as well so that you don't miss it. But it takes place around 3 hours before UFC Stockholm is scheduled to start. So that gives us plenty of time to answer all your questions and get through the prop bets. So a massive thank you to everyone that's subscribed so far. And if you do like this video, if you appreciate these videos, it would mean the world to me if you would also hit the like button below. So moving on to this fight card, I said that I wanted to leave it late to just basically see if the landscape for betting this event changed at all, to see if the odds had moved significantly in any direction or if any new matchups came from fight cancellations. Of course, a few hours ago, the fight between Ilir Latifi and Volkan Ozdemir matchup was cancelled, which is quite unfortunate. I was thinking about a bet on Ozdemir all week, but now that decision has been made for me since the fight's cancelled. And really speaking, we haven't seen that much line movement at all for this card in part 3 of this series of videos. And of course, I will leave a link to parts 1, 2 and 3 in the description below for you to check out. But in part 3 of this video, I was saying how this is a really bad card for betting. And just the whole kind of energy around this card is kind of flat. There's barely any MMA media coverage on it. If you go on YouTube, there's barely any fighter interviews. A big part of my fight week research is just watching all the fight week interviews that the media outlets put out, but there hasn't really been that much for this card. Also haven't really seen that many people talking about these fights online, and it's no surprise really it's a poor event. And because there hasn't been that much interest, because there hasn't been much MMA media or UFC marketing machine hyping these fights and pushing this event, obviously we haven't seen much odds movement because the big casual money that comes in and bets on these fighters, it isn't really there yet. I mean, maybe we'll see some crazy line movement after the weigh-ins tomorrow, or maybe we'll see some crazy line movement on fight day, but at the moment, pretty uneventful. I mean, the odds on Gustafsson and Smith haven't changed too much. The odds have changed quite a bit on the Fishgold versus Amakani fight. Amakani has been steadily declining over the last 10 days or so. But not enough in any direction for me to want to bet that fight. The odds have slightly improved on Rakic, but nothing major. Down from around 1.45 up to around 1.53 on some sites. The odds on Hadzovic have improved, which, I can definitely see why, with his takedown defense being so bad, but nothing major. The odds on Sung Bin Jo have improved, which is, again, not too much of a surprise. He opened up at around about minus 200, 150, and now he's up at about 1.70, which I'm not too good at money line odds, but is that minus 130? Should we take a guess? No, it's minus 143. I need to brush up on my American odds. Rostem Akman versus Sergey Khandozhko is a brand new fight we'll be talking about in today's video. So the odds have got completely steamed on Evinger. She opened up at around about 1.58, which is 1.58 minus 172. Just refresh that there. Minus 172. And she's been absolutely steamed down to 1.36, which is minus 278. So some line movement, but not the kind of line movement that we like. Santana and Malecki, the odds have flip-flopped. Malecki was a moderate underdog. She's now the favourite. She's been bet down from around about 2.47, which is plus 147, down to around about 1.80, which is minus 125. See, I do know some of the American odds. That was straight off the dome. And that may be because of the, the uncertainty around Santana, maybe being affected by the fact that her brother Alex Cowboy Oliveira is currently under warrant for arrest in Brazil for domestic violence. Very, very interesting that the odds have moved in that way. The odds are around about even here, and the odds have improved on Stosic. This is the only fighter really that I have been tempted to bet all week, aside from Ozdemir, with the way that the odds have moved. There was a definite pass when Stosic was around about 1.65, which is minus 154, but now Stosic's odds are up at around even money 2.0, which is plus 100. So Stosic definitely getting interesting. I'll keep an eye on it, and maybe we could talk about it in the live stream to see if there's a potential bet there. But today's video is probably going to be another long one, guys, because as we always say, complex fights require complex breakdowns, and I really want to apologize if you are listening to this video or listening to this episode on iTunes podcasts, because I will be including a lot of fight footage on this particular video. There's a lot of fight footage available on the fighters that I want to talk about in today's video, so it might not be the best for you if you're listening, because I'll be referring to a lot of video footage. But if you are listening to this on iTunes, please consider leaving a review and also leaving 5 stars. And I promise you guys, if you are on Android devices, I will be setting up Spotify very, very soon. I just need to get around to it, but Spotify will be coming very soon. But if you're listening on iTunes, please leave a review and give me 5 stars. It would mean the world to me. But now this is going to be a long video. We've got some complex fights to get into. We're covering 4 fights in this video instead of the usual 3. And we've also got to review quite a lot of fight footage. So I've got some water. I've also got some raspberries. I think I've earned a raspberry to get going. Just need to eat some raspberries. Give me some energy for this lengthy video, because it's going to be a long one. It's almost 2 a.m. Let's smash it. Let's get into it. And they are fucking tasty. They're good raspberries. Okay, so first fight to jump into. Let's just jump right in. We are going to be talking about Danilo Belluardo versus Joe Alvarez. So Danilo Belluardo making his UFC debut. And he trains at Team Alpha Male. Sorry, just had a raspberry seed in my mouth. I'm not eating any more raspberries. Gonna fuck the video up if I do. Apologise about that, guys. Amateur hour. I've just learned something new. I'm learning new stuff all the time. I've only been doing this for 3 weeks. Don't eat raspberries while doing videos, guys. Pro tip. Sorted, back into it. Right, so Danilo Belluardo is fighting Joel Alvarez. Now, we always talk about the statistic of a large percentage of fighters, when they make their UFC debut, they go on to lose. And there are various reasons for that, you know, often because fighters, when they make their debut, are doing the UFC a favour and stepping up on short notice, but also because, you know, many of these fighters are used to fighting, you know, in leisure centres and gyms and, you know, venues in front of just a few hundred people. So when they finally get to competing under the bright lights of the UFC, it's a big shock to their system. It's a big stage, and they just freeze under the pressure, and it takes them a while to get used to it. You know, octagon jitters are a very real thing. And if you want an example of how badly octagon jitters can affect a fighter, in the last sort of 6 months, there are 2 excellent examples that I can think of. The first is Ariane Lipski. If you go back and watch Ariane Lipski's fights outside of the UFC, when she competed in KSW, she was fast, technical, and explosive. And when she made her debut against Joanne Calderwood, she just looked like a total muppet. Very low level, no ground game at all, very flat, very slow, very predictable. And that kind of perfectly illustrates why it's dangerous betting on UFC fighters when they make their UFC debut. But Joel Alvarez is probably the second best example I can think of, because when you go and watch Alvarez's fights before he came into the UFC, he's got excellent Muay Thai, fast, technical, sharp, you know, very, very good, and a slick ground game as well. Slick submissions, difficult to take down. But when he made his UFC debut against Damir Ismagulov back in February, he looked very flat, very slow, very ordinary. A lot of people were on Damir Ismagulov in this fight. I believe Ismagulov was around about a 1.40 favourite, minus 250. And I could absolutely tell that people were just betting in blind. They weren't doing their homework. And I was trying to warn people, you know, be very careful. Joel Alvarez is an excellent fighter. And he made me look like a total dumbass, because when he showed up on fight night, he just looked very, very ordinary. Now, I'm going to show you a bit of Joel Alvarez now, just so you can kind of familiarise yourself with him. So when I show you some footage of Danilo Belluardo a little bit later on, you can kind of visualise how both these guys match up. So the first fight that I'm going to show you is Joel Alvarez's, one of his recent fights. I'm not going to show you this fight between Radu and Maxim, because it ended very quickly, but I will show you this fight from AFL 16 against Julio Cesar Alves from around about 8 months ago. And one thing that I want to point out before we get into showing you this fight is that you can see on Joel Alvarez's record. Now, you guys know me. I don't really put any weight in win-loss records. They don't mean a damn thing to me. All I care about is the skills displayed in the cage. But as you can see, Joel Alvarez has got a lot of wins by submission. And I've just told you that he is primarily a striker. He's got a base in Muay Thai. Very, very technical Muay Thai. And one of the reasons why, I mean, let's just get into it while I explain this. This is his fight against Julio Cesar Alves from back in September. But as you can see, he's got a very Muay Thai based stance here. I mean, even wearing the Muay Thai shorts, Alvarez's fighting style is very Muay Thai based. But the reason why he has so many wins by submission on his record is because he's got a very sick submission game, and he never goes looking for takedowns. He never goes, you know, looking to beat his opponents up on the ground. But he's got so many wins by submission because he's at such a high level when it comes to striking that fighters inevitably try to take him down, and then in a scramble they end up getting caught in one of his slick submissions. Now, I really wanted to show you some footage of Alvarez here because he looks very sharp, very fast, and very technical in his past fights before he came into the UFC. But I mean, there you can see a perfectly timed counter knee there, absolutely brilliant. I'm not going to mess around with the Fight TV player because it's not the best. It's quite buggy, and if I try, you know, going back and showing you like little details like that counter knee there. It's just gonna mess the video up because we're gonna lose our place because this video is like 3 hours long and it's hard to get the exact point I want it to be. But just rewind this video, my breakdown, and just see that counter knee. Very nice. But the point I'm trying to make is, if you would have researched this fight based on Alvarez's performance against Ismagulov, you may have thought that he's not very good at all. But I wanted to show you some of this footage here just to point out the fact that fighters often underperform in their UFC debut, and Alvarez definitely underperformed because he's very technical, very explosive. I mean, there you can see a beautiful 4-strike combo finishing with a leg kick, you know, throwing a very nice teep kick right up the middle, a teep head kick with absolutely no telegraph, no wind up. Alvarez is very, very technical. Now, I don't want this video to be mega long, so I'm not gonna, you know, just rabbit on while we spend the next 3 minutes going through this first round here. But I just want to skip ahead to the end of this round just so you can see a little bit of Alvarez's ground game on display. Now, the reason why I want to focus on this is because Belluardo is primarily a grappler. So if we get into the end of this round here, we can see Alvarez again getting very aggressive, you know, walking Alvarez down. Nice combinations, also throws a very wide range of strikes, and inevitably it's only going to be a matter of time before his opponent has enough of getting absolutely lit up on the feet and attempts to take a fight to the ground. This is how all of Alvarez's fights tend to play out. So here we can see Alvarez shoot a very nice deep double leg takedown here, and even though Alvarez gives up the takedown, he shows very good initial takedown defense, shows good balance, does a really good job of clearing his legs, but Alvarez does a good job of driving through and completing the takedown. So that was the end of the first round here. As we go into the second round, we can see Alvarez, you know, jogging back to his corner there, cardio not in question. His cardio's looked great in all the fights that I saw from him. And also, I kind of got to mention that there. See in the replay how Alvarez, if we can go back to this one, I don't want to mess around with the player. Ah, screw it, I'm not going to bother. I was just going to say that Alvarez has also got a great chin. We saw him eat that overhand right in the replay there, and he also ate some big shots against Ismagulov. Even though he didn't look that great against Ismagulov, it showed that he's very tough, he's got great cardio and a great chin. And it's just unfortunate that he didn't show up looking this fast, technical, or as explosive as he did against in the Ismagulov fights. I think he would have been way closer. Now here we can see another very nice deep double leg entry from Alvarez. He had to switch it to a single leg, but very early on, I've got to replay this. I wish the Fight TV player was better so I could talk you through the sequence of what's happening. But what happens here is Alvarez shoots in on a very, very nice deep double leg takedown, but Alvarez gets double underhooks in play very early on, so Alvarez has to switch to the single leg, and then as soon as Alvarez knows that he has defended the double leg and he's not in any danger anymore, watch how he goes for the head straight away here. Clears his legs, uses good balance to defend the takedown, then straight away jumps on a choke, trying to set up the guillotine here. Not willing to let the left arm go. And Alvarez obviously just rolling to his back here to defend the position. But now we see a little bit of Alvarez's ground game. But notice how there, as Alvarez attempts to stand up and go for another single leg, Alvarez clears his legs to prevent him from doing that. And again, jumps in on the choke. And it's only a matter of time before he forces Alvarez to tap. There it is. So very, very slick stuff from Alvarez. Again, I wish I could rewind and slow down and pause that footage to talk you through exactly what's happening. I'm not going to do that because the Fight TV fight player's an absolute fucking nightmare. But you can see a little bit of what Alvarez brings to the table. So Alvarez, technical Muay Thai, very fast, throws a wide range of strikes, great cardio, very tough, good chin, and very, very slick submission game. His takedown defense isn't bulletproof, but he's very good in the scramble and he knows what he's doing. So even though he didn't look good against Ismagulov, I'm hoping that that's just going to be octagon jitters, and he will look a lot better in his second fight here against Danilo Belluardo. Now, he may not. It's possible that Alvarez has built a career on performance-enhancing drugs, and now he will never look as good as he does here in the UFC. But Alvarez is only 26 years old, still got loads of time to improve. I'm sure that he is going to be just fine. I'm sure he's going to look a lot better in his second fight here against Belluardo. And here we can see, I'm not even sure what this guy's name is, from AFL 13. This was his fight against Francisco Gonzalez. Here we can see, again, Alvarez showing very good takedown defense against the cage. Got double underhooks in play there to disengage. And Alvarez is just a good, solid young fighter that's going to be making big improvements from fight to fight. So that is pretty much Joel Alvarez. Hope you learn a little bit about him there. I just wanted to show you a decent amount of footage on him so that you don't think he's a bum based on that performance against Ismagulov. And again, not easy to make your UFC debut at 26 years old against a tough, well-rounded Sambo guy like Damir Ismagulov. It was a nightmare debut, but at the same time, Alvarez also did underperform. He didn't look anywhere near as good as he did in those AFL fights that I showed you. So now, let's take a little bit of a look at what Danilo Belluardo brings to the table. This is the guy making his UFC debut. And the first thing that I want to talk about, and the reason why I focus so much on Alvarez's grappling there, is because Danilo Belluardo trains at Team Alpha Male, so he's only 24 years old, so he's going to be making big improvements from fight to fight. But here we can see him at Team Alpha Male with Chris Holdsworth, Darren Elkins, and Taruto Ishihara. He's also here with Danny Castillo, Clay Guida, so you can see Danilo Belluardo getting in some really good training with, you know, some of the best fighters in the world. Here we can see him with Andre Philly, and here with the main man himself, Uriah Faber and Sage Northcutt. So Danilo Belluardo comes from a very good background, comes from a very good camp. And we're now going to play a little bit of footage of Danilo Belluardo because he is primarily a grappler. He is your typical Team Alpha Male style fighter. Here he's coming out in the southpaw stance. He's the guy in the black shorts here, black and red shorts. But Belluardo doesn't waste any time in going for takedowns in this fight, and he's really a grinder. This is his last fight against Danilson Neves de Oliveira from back in March. So this fight only took 2 months ago. So you would not expect Belluardo to look too different on Saturday night against Alvarez and how he looks here. But you saw just a few moments ago Belluardo change levels and duck in under on a really nice deep double leg shot, and absolutely brilliant here how he couldn't quite get his hands connected together. So to complete the double leg takedown, he tried to get his right leg in and get a trip, which he done an excellent job of. Now Oliveira's done a good job of posting and trying to use the cage to stand back up. You can see Belluardo all over him here, absolutely all over him, and that's pretty much the story of the whole of the first round. I'm going to skip through this so that the breakdown doesn't end up being absolutely huge, but obviously this fight is available on YouTube. Go check it out. The point I'm trying to make is that Belluardo is a relentless grappler, very good chain wrestler, very good offensive wrestler, and he constantly shoots for the entire duration of the fight. And there you can see he's just completely wet blanketed Oliveira for the entire duration of the first round. But I always say, it doesn't matter who a fighter faces in order to gauge how good they are. You know, I hate it when people say, oh, you know, so-and-so has never fought anyone, or he sucks, or he's going to lose because he hasn't fought anyone. And it's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. To me, when people say that, it's purely a sign that they don't understand fighting, because you can tell how good someone is from the technique that they display inside their fights. It doesn't matter the level of opponent that they're going up against. And I can tell you that Danilo Belluardo, based on the technique that he displayed in this fight, is an excellent grappler, very technical grappler, very, very talented grappler. And he's going to be an absolute nightmare in the UFC. He's going to have a bright future. At 24 years old, he is very, very good. And it's unusual to see Italian fighters this good. He's absolutely excellent. But as we go into the second round, again, same story. Belluardo just wet blanketing his opponent. Absolute domination until he gets into a few sticky moments. But on the whole, absolute grappling domination from Belluardo. And now we are into the third round. And what you actually see now in this third round is that Belluardo has slowed down quite a bit in this third round. Remember, he's put on a relentless pace, relentlessly gone after takedowns and grinding on Oliveira. And here we see him in the third round of this fight actually start to struggle. Oliveira manages to tie him up against the cage and grind on him for a bit. And Belluardo, if you go back and watch this fight, is very, very tired. Here we can see shortly he gives up a very easy takedown against Oliveira in this third round, coming any second now. Here we can see Oliveira's got control of his body on a body lock. And I mean, a strong wrestler shouldn't be getting taken down on a body lock takedown like that, especially when they've got the cage to be able to defend that position. But he was too tired to break the grip of Oliveira, too tired to fight for underhooks, and that's why he gave up that takedown. So in this round, this third round, Oliveira basically does to Belluardo what Belluardo did to him for the first and second round. And this is just basically because, similar to what we talked about in the fight between Christos Giagos and Damir Hadzovic, where Giagos doesn't have bad cardio, but he struggles to pace himself. So because he relentlessly shoots on his opponent and exerts tons of energy, as the fight goes on, he does tend to slow down. This is exactly what we've seen from Danilo Belluardo. He exerted so much energy to wet blanket his opponent in the first and second round that in the third round he was exhausted and started to look really sloppy and give up easy takedowns. But that's to be expected for a young guy at 24 years old. You know, Belluardo doesn't have bad cardio. He just hasn't learned to pace himself yet. And that is exacerbated by the fact that so many of his fights have ended quickly. I mean, if we look at his record here, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. His last 9 fights have ended inside the distance. And that fight against Danielson Neves, was the first fight in a long time that went the distance. So that's probably why he slowed down. Just wasn't used to pacing himself over a 15-minute fight. But now in this matchup against Joe Alvarez, you know, train at Team Alpha Male, and there's some great fighters that are going to be able to share wisdom with him. He will have learned a lot from this and will probably will learn to pace himself a lot better in his future fights and this fight against Joel Alvarez. Now, obviously, we've got to throw into the mix the fact that he probably hasn't been earning very much money for these fights. And I would imagine going to train at Team Alpha Male in California is very expensive. So how's he been supporting himself? Can he afford to eat good, live good, train good? You know, that could have an impact on his cardio as well. But yeah, the point I'm trying to make is Belluardo's going to be a bit of a nightmare. But as you can see from the footage that I've just shown you from both guys, this fight is a real headache when it comes to betting. And it's important to cover these fights in this much detail to highlight the complexities of matchups like this. Because people criticize me for passing on so many fights. But based on what I've shown you, how can you possibly know who's going to win this fight? I mean, if either guy was a big underdog, there would absolutely be value there. But as you can see in the odds at the moment, they're both roughly around dead even. So if we look at the odds on Danilo Belluardo, he's currently around about a 1.95 favourite, which is minus 105, for an implied probability of 51%. And Joel Alvarez is around about a 1.93 favourite, which is minus 108 for, again, an implied probability of about 52%. So the bookies see this as a 50-50 fight. And please, based on what I've just shown you, how can you feel confident either way? Because while Danilo Belluardo has excellent offensive wrestling to spam takedowns and wet blanket Alvarez for, you know, at least 2 rounds based on what we've just seen. We've also seen that Joel Alvarez has a very, very slick submission game. So when Belluardo does get into these positions on the ground, it's very likely that Alvarez could put him in some very bad positions, reverse positions, or submit him. And we also see that Alvarez is a very slick technical striker that could cause Belluardo big problems on the feet if he's able to keep his standing. And Alvarez might be able to keep his standing. His initial takedown defense looked very good. You know, good balance. Did a good job of clearing his legs and having strong hips when guys shot in deep on him. So a very difficult fight to predict. It's very possible Danilo Belluardo could wet blanket Alvarez for 3 rounds, but it's also very possible Alvarez catches him in a submission or is able to keep the fight standing for decent periods of time and outstrike strike Belluardo. It's also possible Alvarez makes Belluardo work very hard for takedowns early on in the fight, which results in Belluardo not managing his cardio properly, not pacing himself, and slowing down in the second half of the fight, allowing Alvarez to take over. So there's no way, based on the information we've got available to us, to know which way this fight's going to go. So it's just an easy pass. An absolute no-brainer pass. There are no solid betting opportunities here. So now let us go into the next fight that I want to talk about in today's video. And just making sure that I didn't miss anything on that last fight. No, I don't think I did. We are going to now go into the next fight, which again, apologies if you're listening on iTunes, but please leave me a review. Give me 5 stars if you're on Android. Spotify coming soon. We are now going to go into another fight with a lot more footage that I want to show to you on Sergey Khandozhko against Rostem Akman. Now, both guys are making their UFC debut, although Sergey Khandozhko was initially supposed to be fighting Bartosz Fabinski. But earlier this week, or late last week, Fabinski withdrew from the fight with an injury, which means Rostem Akman is stepping up to take this fight on about 1 week's notice. Now, usually that would be a really bad thing, but I'm not too concerned, because as you can see here, Rostem Akman did fight around about 2 weeks ago. So he still should be in decent shape. I've watched this fight. It went deep into the 3rd round. Akman's cardio looked absolutely brilliant. So, you know, you never know. Maybe he let himself go after this fight and ate the trifecta of junk food every day. Maybe he had McDonald's for breakfast, KFC for lunch, and a Burger King for tea, in which case, you know, that would have an impact on how he looks, you know, since he last fought 2 weeks ago against Mauricio Rice. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say, even though he is taking this fight on short notice, you know, it's not like he's coming off the bench without doing any kind of training over the last couple of months. We know that he's probably done a pretty good camp for Mauricio Rice, because he looked in great shape, and his cardio held up deep into the 3rd round. And also, Rostem Akman trains at Tiger Muay Thai. I personally believe that Tiger Muay Thai is one of the best MMA gyms in the world. It's right up there. You know, I personally think that Tiger Muay Thai and American Top Team are the 2 best MMA gyms in the world at the moment. So that definitely goes in Akman's favour. And Akman is a typical Tiger Muay Thai fighter, to be honest with you. We will hit play here on this fight. Akman is the hairy guy. He is a hairy man. He has got a lot of testosterone pumping through his body, because he has got one hairy motherfucking back. I'm not going to lie to you. It's this guy here. But gets taken down here off a very nice reactive double leg from Mauricio Rice. But like most Tiger Muay Thai guys, Akman very difficult to hold down, and it doesn't take long for him to start looking for a way to get back to his feet. And very shortly here, you are going to see him start to scoot his hips back to try and he recovered full guard, and now he's going to try and scoot his hips back to get his back tight to the cage so that he can use the cage to stand back up. We're going to see that any second now. As you can see here, Akman doing a good job of just scooting his hips inch by inch by inch to get his back tight to the cage, and Rice also kind of helping him walk up to the cage, which is kind of bad fight IQ. It then gives Akman a tool to stand back up, and here you can see almost immediately pops back to his feet. So taken down within the first minute, and also manages to work his way back up to his feet within 1 minute, which is a very good sign. I hate it when fighters just accept bottom position, but Akman did not accept bottom position, and as soon as he gets his right leg clear here, you're going to see him pop right back up to his feet and disengage from Mauricio Rice. Here he goes, right leg is almost clear, almost. Got his right leg down, and he can kick off and pop back up. Oh, he couldn't. The problem with this Fight TV back-in player is very hard for me to create notes, because pausing and replaying is very difficult without glitching the player out. Here we can see he's back up now, and he's going to disengage from this position. Got the overhook on the right side, which a lot of Muay Thai guys like to use to defend takedowns, and then he was able to get that underhook in play. Fuck it, this Fight TV play is an absolute nightmare. Can I show you the underhook he used? Maybe. Sorry guys, this is the problem with trying to replay stuff. It's just murder because the player is not the best. But here we can see as he stands back up, watch his left arm. He gets a really strong underhook in play, an overhook in play with his right arm, and then he circles away from the cage absolutely beautifully any second now. Watch, right, left arm underhook. Right overhook, or overhook with the right arm, left underhook there with the left arm, beautiful, circles out of danger, reverses position, and now he's off to the races. Early on in this fight, early on in the first round, got caught cold, flat-footed with that very nice deep double leg takedown from Mauricio Rice, but now Akman can settle into that Tiger Muay Thai style of fighting, where he just walks his opponent down and just chips away at them with really high level, nice technical Muay Thai. Here we can also see him fighting out of the southpaw stance, which is very, very nice. And Akman in many ways reminds me a lot of a TriStar type fighter, because he's 6-0. He has fought quite a low level of opponent throughout his career, but he doesn't show any urgency, doesn't put himself in any unnecessary danger, doesn't take any unnecessary risks. Standing up, he's more than happy to just chip away at his opponent and point fight. And on the ground, he's more than happy just to go for position over submissions or hurting his opponents with ground and pound. So you can just see him here, very, very technical, controlling the centre of the octagon, taking time to find his range, chipping away at his opponent. Very, very nice. Now, what I also like about Akman in this fight is that it's very clear that he's an intelligent fighter, because he keeps the fight in this range and just chips away at Rice throughout the fight. He doesn't have to win each round, but he doesn't get overly aggressive, doesn't take any unnecessary risks, just chips away at him. And Akman is kind of the opposite of guys that I've shown you in this series of videos like Belluardo and Giagos, because guys like that don't know how to pace themselves, whereas a guy like Akman does, and that's probably because of his very extent. Oh, there I've got to pause it there, guys, just to show you something important. But Akman is a fighter that is wise beyond his years. He seems way more experienced than a fighter with just 6 pro MMA fights, because as you can see, he's got a very extensive 17-fight amateur career in the IMMAF, which is very nice. So 6 pro fights, but an amateur career spanning 17 fights, which means that even though he looks quite inexperienced, he's actually, very, very good. And if we restart this here, like I just said a few moments ago, Akman got caught cold and flat-footed with that deep double leg takedown early on in this round. But now you can see when Rice shoots in a few moments' time. This time, now that Akman has had some time to settle down, find his range, settle into a rhythm, now we can see that he spots the takedown from Rice coming from a mile away, and he's able to get underhooks in play very, very early and stuff it. And you can see it's going to come any minute now. Rice is going to change levels and go for the double leg takedown, but this time gets nowhere near it. Akman shuts his shit down. But before before that happens, I just want to make a point that Akman's pretty much one pace, takes control of the centre of the octagon, just like a TriStar type fighter, point fights, outstrikes his opponent, comfortably win rounds, doesn't take any risks, doesn't get overly aggressive, and just very, very solid, very intelligent. The complete opposite of Alvarez and Belluardo, who redline it and end up slowing down because they don't have the cardio to fight at that high pace for 3 rounds. Akman is very wise, very experienced with his amateur career, and he just paces himself very well. And Jesus, this is why I hate rewinding stuff, because this Fight TV play is an absolute nightmare. All I wanted to show you was rewind 30 seconds or so to show you Rice's takedown attempt and how Akman deals with it. So there you see Rice threatening to change levels there, to duck under and go for the double leg, retreated on it, but it's going to be coming up any minute now. Again, kind of went to change levels, but then threw an overhand right in there. We can see Rice attempting to shoot a really deep double leg takedown, just like he did in the first minute of this round, but instead, this time, Akman is waiting for it, showed good hips, cleared his legs, didn't let Rice get anywhere near his legs, and got double underhooks in play very early on to stuff it. And I'm not going to try and rewind that to talk you through that sequence, because last time I did that, it rewound way too far. And now we can see Akman trying to deter Rice from looking for another takedown by getting really aggressive, letting his hands go. And the two reasons why he does this, the first reason is because he wants to punish Rice for attempting to take this fight to the ground. He wants Rice to know that every time you try and take me down, I'm going to dissuade you from doing that in the future by hurting you. Akman, very intelligent, is something the TriStar fighters do a lot. They will deter you from shooting in on them by getting more aggressive and trying to hurt you after they stuff your takedowns, so push you into a defensive shell. The second reason why Akman is doing this is because it's clock management. He knows that it's close to the end of the first round, so he's cranking the pace up, cranking his aggression, cranking his volume to put his stamp on the round. Because as we know, judges tend to score rounds in favour of the fighter who finished the round strongest. So by Akman cranking things up in this final minute, it's going to enable him to put his stamp on the round. So this first round here shows that Akman is a very intelligent fighter. And the second round of this fight is pretty much the same as this round. If I'm honest with you, there's not really that much difference. So for that reason, I want to skip ahead to this third round. So we are in the third round now. The second round played out very similarly to the first round, but what you're going to see here, again, Akman showing his experience, his intelligence, his great fight IQ, his great pacing. Instead of redlining it like Belluardo and Giagos from the very first second, Akman paced himself in the first and second round so that he could up the output and go for the kill in round 3. Here we can see in round 3, Akman's still fresh because he's paced himself well in rounds 1 and 2, and now in this third round he's going to go for the kill. And here you're seeing him in this third round way aggressive than he was in round 1, really picked the volume up. Now that he's got comfortable and found his range and he knows he's got plenty of gas in the tank, look at these combos that he's letting go here. Now he could have done this in round 1, he absolutely could have done this in round 1, and again there, look, Rice tries to buy himself some time with a deep double leg takedown, but on that occasion again, Akman showing strong hips, good balance to stuff it, and Akman just teeing off. But like I was just about to say, Akman can do this in round 1. He can absolutely do what he's just done to get that stoppage in round 1. You know, no doubt about it. He's got the technique to do it, but he didn't, because if you do that in round 1, you risk gassing out because you redline it and you use up all your energy in round 1. Which is exactly what we see Belluardo do in the fight that I showed you, and exactly what Giagos does in all his fights. Akman paced himself in round 1 and 2 and then went for the strong finish, which says to me, everything I've just shown you and explained means that Akman is a very, very intelligent fighter. Way more intelligent than most fighters would be after 6 pro MMA fights, but obviously his extensive amateur MMA career is helping him. Now, that is a lot of information I've given you on Akman. I think he's very good. I actually think he's very, very good. He's also got home advantage on his side. But he's fighting a tough Russian in Sergey Khandozhko. So what does this guy bring to the table? So this fight here that I am about to show you is from S70 Platformer Cup 2018 against Adriano Rodriguez. This is Khandozhko's last fight from August, which was around 9 months ago. So probably isn't going to look that different from how he looks here. And I only want to show you one fight from Khandozhko because these fights of him in ACB are available to watch online. But as you can see, they're from back in 2017. And Khandozhko's only 27 years old. So back here, he only would have been about 25 years old. As we know, at this young stage in a fighter's career, they make big improvements from fight to fight. And to be honest, Khandozhko didn't look that good in his fights in ACB at all. He looks way more explosive, way sharper, just way better against Adriano Rodriguez. So I don't want to judge him too harshly on his poor performances in ACB, just because he looked much better in this fight that I'm going to show you. Now, we start this fight off. This is again against Rodriguez. Khandozhko is in the black shorts, and again he's making his UFC debut. But remember, Khandozhko making his UFC debut on a full camp. He was originally scheduled to fight Bartosz Fabinski. So they start here, and Rodriguez is going to waste absolutely no time shooting a very deep double leg takedown. Now, it's very difficult to gauge a fighter's takedown defense when they're competing in a ring, because the cage is such a strong tool that fighters can use to stuff takedowns. But here we can see Khandozhko decided to give Rodriguez the single leg to keep his balance and get his back tight to the ropes. But the ropes, again, as you can see, there's a lot of give in ropes. It's hard to create a strong base against the ropes because they're constantly moving. It's not like a cage, which is a rigid structure. And Rodriguez isn't going to let up on this single leg takedown. We can now see Rodriguez chained the single leg takedown into a body lock. Here we can see he gave up on the single leg, and then he decided to go to the body lock, connecting his hands around Khandozhko's body. And Rodriguez, you know what a fighter would usually do in this position is to either try and move to Khandozhko's back to take the back, or what they would do is look to get a trip takedown or a throw from this position, similar to what we saw Oliveira do to Belluardo in that third round. But Khandozhko doing a really good job of using the ropes here to defend this takedown. Hasn't got much to work with, but there we can see a very nice judo throw straight into mount, which shows that Khandozhko knows what he's doing. Not a complete bum by any means. Difficult to stuff those kind of takedowns when you don't have a cage. I mean, it's difficult to stuff those takedowns when you do have a cage, when you know your opponent's got full control of your body. But the fact that Khandozhko was able to defend that position against ropes in a ring was very, very impressive. And Khandozhko goes straight into mount here. And the important thing about this fight is that Khandozhko, his grappling looks very good. He looked to be primarily a kickboxer in his fights that I saw from him in ACB. But again here, Rodriguez with the trip takedown, and straight away what I like about Khandozhko is he's looking to stand back up, but it's very difficult. You can imagine he's trapped here in a corner with ropes, with nothing really to post on and stand back up. Can't really wall walk from this position with a ring there. In a cage, Khandozhko would stand a much better chance of standing up on the off being taken down from that position. But the Russian referee giving him a gift here, standing him back up, and they're back in the center of the ring. And we already know what Rodriguez is trying to do. He's trying to get this fight to the ground. But Khandozhko wants to keep this fight standing. He's primarily a kickboxer. Here we can see Khandozhko is a very aggressive striker. He's very wild and reckless, which is what I like about him. He's also got primarily a Muay Thai style, but as we also just saw, you know, from that clip, knows how to defend takedowns. Here he's creating a wide base against the ropes. Very, very nice stuff from Khandozhko. It's just the unfortunate thing about the footage that's available on Khandozhko is that he is primarily a striker, but he looked a bit shit in his fights in ACB. So I don't want to show you that footage because it might skew your opinion of him. But at the same time, I can't really talk too much about his striking in this fight because Rodriguez doesn't want to fight in kickboxing range. He wants to be all the way in, working the takedowns, or all the way out. So we don't see a great deal of Khandozhko striking in this fight, but he is quite reckless, is quite explosive, and yeah, that's pretty much it, guys, for Akman and Khandozhko. Don't really know what else to tell you. I mean, both guys look pretty decent. Very, very good, actually. Khandozhko didn't look good in ACB, but like I say, his last fight against in the Platformer Cup, very, very good. So you've seen a little bit of both guys, and again, now you can kind of appreciate why I'm passing on this fight. I mean, based on what I've just showed you, how the hell would anyone be able to feel confident either side? I mean, if we look at the current odds, Rostem Akman is currently around about a 2.45 underdog, which is plus 145, which carries an implied probability of 41%. And Sergey Khandozhko It's currently around about a 1.61 favourite, which is minus 164 for an implied probability of 62%. So the bookies are seeing this fight as roughly 60-40 in favour of Khandozhko's. It's 60-40 in favour of Khandozhko, and yeah, I'm not going to argue with that. I mean, how do you cap this fight? I mean, we just don't know. I mean, please tell me, based on what I've shown you, who you think's going to win this fight, because I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't know, and I don't see how anyone could feel confident in either side, and that's why this fight's an easy pass for me. At the end of the day, I'm spending a long time going through these fights, but they're complex fights. They're really, really complex fights, and it's important to respect that and not force bets and not gamble and just wait for solid betting opportunities to pop up. I've already got 2 solid bets for UFC 238. Why risk dumping off future potential profits on cards like this where there just aren't many good opportunities? So I hope you appreciate, based on those last 2 fights that I've covered, there's just no opportunities on those fights. And now we move on to the next one, which is Tonya Evinger against Lina Lansberg. Now, this is a classic striker versus grappler matchup, with Tonya Evinger being the grappler and the very lovely Lina Lansberg being the striker. Now, that's not to say Tonya Evinger isn't lovely as well. I'm sure she is very lovely, but Lina Lansberg definitely winning the war of the profile picks here. Now, this fight is a tricky fight for betting because both these girls are 37 years old, and if I have to give you one piece of advice, it is that betting on 37-year-old female fighters probably isn't the smartest thing to do. This is a very complex matchup because Lina Lansberg has bad takedown defense and a low-level ground game, but Tonya Evinger doesn't really have the best offensive wrestling, isn't particularly good at getting her opponents to the ground, and most of her fights end up on the ground just through crazy scrambles or opportunistic situations that Evinger's been able to capitalize on. But I couldn't actually say, Evinger's going to be able to go out there and take Lansberg down, because Evinger's offensive wrestling is quite shit, to be honest with you. Another thing that concerns me about Evinger is that she straight up quit in her last fight against Aspen Ladd, which is a big concern. At the age of 37 years old, we know that very suddenly and out of nowhere, a fighter's career can fall off a cliff, and Evinger straight up quit against Aspen Ladd. In the first round, she felt that she was second best everywhere, and she just looked for a way out. It's a big concern. That's a huge red flag for me. When a fighter straight up quits and just doesn't want to be in there, it's a big red flag, because it says to me, if you put Evinger in a bad position, she will quit. And we know, for all Lina Lansberg's flaws, she's a tough girl. Very, very tough. Reasonably good cardio, not amazing. Tends to slow down a little bit in the second half of a fight, but so does Evinger. And at 37 years old, you'd expect that from both girls. So Lansberg, primarily a Muay Thai fighter, but not the most dangerous striker, not really that much power in her hands. She likes to spend a lot of time in the clinch grinding on her opponents against the cage, and that'll suit Evinger, who likes to work for takedowns against the cage because, like I say, her offensive wrestling is quite shit. So, if this fight stays standing, Lansberg should win, because Evinger's just a very low-level basic striker. I mean, she's quite awkward and scrappy, which could make things close, I guess, but you'd have to give Lansberg the advantage because she's got the Muay Thai base. But I mean, this is a really tough fight, guys. Let's look at it by the odds. As you can see, I'm just not loving this card very much at all for betting. Let's jump into the odds. So Lina Lansberg is Lina Lansberg's a relatively big underdog at odds of 3.45, which is plus 245 for an implied probability of 29%. I get why she's an underdog here. She's got home advantage. She's the better striker. Tonya Evinger doesn't have particularly good offensive wrestling, but at the same time, if she does get Lansberg down, she's going to be able to dominate. But if we look at the odds on Evinger, currently around about 1.36, which is minus 278 for an implied probability of 74%. I mean, there's just no way you can bet on a 37-year-old female fighter that quit in her last. She straight up quit against Aspen Ladd, guys. Quit. And when a fighter quits once, it is often a sign that it is the beginning of the end for them. You know, Evinger earlier this week. Let's bring the odds chart up. Evinger, a couple of weeks ago was a 1.58 favourite, which gives her an implied probability of 63%, moneyline odds of minus 172. I mean, those would have been fair odds, but still pretty steep. There's no way I'd be betting on a 37-year-old female fighter that quit literally 7 months ago. I mean, it's even more likely she's going to quit now, having been even older since then. I mean, who the fuck is betting Evinger at these odds? There are actually people out there that have bet Evinger at odds of 1.37, 1.38 to bet her down to 1.36. There are people out there betting Evinger at minus 270 for an implied probability of 73%. It's just going to end in tears. Like, if you bet Evinger at these odds, you might get lucky. She might win this weekend. But if you bet on fighters like this at these odds long term, you will get wrecked. You will absolutely get wrecked. Evinger at those odds is a terrible bet, because to get any value there, you've got to give her, with an implied probability of 74%, you've got to give her roughly an 80% chance of winning. That is fucking bonkers when she quit literally 7 months ago against Aspen Ladd. I mean, if you're a dog chaser, if you if you're one of these guys that, likes to bet on every card, you like to bet every fight because you just bet for entertainment. There's nothing wrong with gambling for entertainment. I try and appeal with my content to people who are more serious about making money from betting. But if you're just someone that likes to bet for fun, then I don't think Lansberg is a bad bet. I actually think she's one of the better bets on the card. But there's just no fucking way that I would bet on a 37-year-old striker against a 37-year-old female striker against a 37-year-old female grappler. Is there value there? I mean, yeah, probably, I guess, but I'm just not fucking interested because I like money. And these type of bets are just not smart. They're not smart, guys. Just don't do it to yourself, man. Just fucking pass. Don't worry about being the smartest guy in the bar. Don't worry about, hunting for value and finding decent value bets. I did a huge speech on this in part 3 of the series of videos. Just don't fucking bet on fighters like Evinger or Lansberg, 37-year-old females. You just can't fucking trust them. Don't do it. If you love to gamble, go for it, roll the dice. But if you love to gamble, fucking go play roulette as well. It's all the same shit in my eyes. So now we move on to the final fight that I want to talk about in part 4 of this video, which is Alexander Rakic against Jimmy Manuwa. Now, Rakic, despite me only covering this fight in part 4 of this series of videos, Rakic was one of the first names that jumped out at me when I began to research this card. Because as we know, Jimmy Manuwa's best days are behind him. He's now almost 40 years old, starting to look very chinny. So I thought Rakic might have been a very good bet. But unfortunately, when I started to research this fight, I gotta be honest, I was a bit disappointed in Rakic. He's not as good as I thought he was. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. Maybe he will show up and look a lot better than I thought he would. And that's definitely possible because he's got a lot going for him. He's got the perfect wingspan for MMA at 6'4" with a 78-inch reach. Excellent wingspan. Absolutely huge for the division. Also fights very long. He's also 27 years old, so he's going to be making big improvements from fight to fight. And he's also training at American Top Team, which means he is training at the best gym in the world, which is going to set him up for a very bright future. And he's going to be making really big improvements from fight to fight. Very exciting to see a guy like Rakic. Very exciting to see a guy like Rakic train at a great gym like ATT because he's got the perfect wingspan. He's still young, decent, reasonably good everywhere. And yeah, pretty decent foundation to grow into a solid fighter, especially in the light heavyweight division, where, you know, I do think that it's quite light on talent at the moment. You know, guys like relatively low-level guys like Anthony Smith and Johnny Walker and Volkan Ozdemir in the last few years have been able to, you know, really climb the ranks very quickly, just because talent is very thin on the ground in the light heavyweight division. So when you see a young, talented, technical guy like this train at American Top Team emerge in the light heavyweight division, it is very exciting. But at the same time, I don't love him in this fight, because as we can see, if we look at the odds, current average odds on Rakic are around about 1.53, which is minus 189 for an implied probability of 65%. So to get any value on Rakic here, to bet Rakic here, you have to give him a 70% or better chance of winning, which is a bit of a stretch. Now, just to completely rule out a bet on Manuwa, if we look at his odds, his average odds at the moment are around about 2.70, which is plus 170 for an implied probability of 37%. There is no way that I would bet on a fighter who's almost 40 years old and chinny against a young, hungry, up-and-coming bull like Rakic that is dangerous, aggressive, and they're going to be making big improvements from fight to fight. There's no way you can bet Manuwa here. But the question is, can you bet Rakic? And at these odds, I really don't love him, because I cannot cap him at 70% here. As much as I like him, I can't get to a 70% probability of him winning, because the problem with Rakic is that his striking is very kicks based. Really isn't the best boxer at all. And I think in order to cause Manuwa big problems, you've got to be able to land punches on him and land power punches to test his chin. I don't think kicks are really going to cause Manuwa that much of a problem. He's still a high-level striker, even at 39 years old. He's a great boxer, and there's no doubt that he's the better boxer here. I was really disappointed in Rakic. I thought he was a sharp, fast, technical striker, and to some extent he is, but his boxing's not great, and his striking defense is not great. His overall skill set is basically a kicks-based striker, and I don't see kicks as causing Manuwa too many problems. You've really gotta test his chin with your hands, and I don't think Rakic has the hands to really cause Manuwa too much of a problem. But of course, with Manuwa being 39 years old now, chinny, he's taken tons of damage over the last few years. He suffered about 12 concussions in this fight against Thiago Santos. Also KO'd by Ozdemir. Brutally KO'd by Anthony Johnson. Taking a lot of head trauma. He's getting old. Can't trust him. I don't like Rakic because I can't cap him at 70%, but he probably wins. Again, just a shit card for betting. Show me where the value is, guys. You know, I'm getting criticised in the comments for passing too much, but please tell me where the good bets are, because if you are betting intelligently like you should be betting, I am just not seeing any opportunities here. But it's all good. There are plenty of events coming up over the next few months. We have absolutely crushed it this year. We are up 30 units on pre-fight betting. We are up 70 units on live betting, for a total combined profit of 100 units since January. I am absolutely crushing it this year, and I am not about to gamble away good money on fights like this where there are just no opportunities. So I know this has been a long one, guys, which I really apologise for, but I hope you liked it anyway. And if you did like it, please hit the like button below. Please also consider subscribing if you haven't already. And I will be back very soon with another video breaking down 3 fights from the next event, which is UFC 238. In fact, if you guys show me some love and smash the like button on this video, if I get enough likes, I might actually release a video for UFC 238 tomorrow, which is Friday. So if you want that, hit the like button below. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you soon.
Too many thoughts on my mind, I can't sleep at night, so I just keep writing. I don't need no help, I don't need opinions, so don't waste my time then. I just been living online, my city don't show me no love, and that's fine. Fuck local radio stations, I got more plays than all of these rappers combined. I'm going again, I've been going in, I'm fed up with so many things, I gotta just let it all out. I'm talking about the shit they've been talking about.